The NSA just called me. We have a problem in East Timor.
What kind of problem?
A big one.
Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Splinter Cell, Pandora Tomorrow, hard difficulty video walkthrough. This is Mission 1. It is the US Embassy to Tili, I think it is, East Timor. And we're back in the capable hands of Mr. Sam Fisher. It has been almost a month since the last Splinter Cell video. I think that's long enough to tease my audience that's really hungry for more of this content, because these games are awesome. And the first thing you're going to notice with this one is that it looks a little better, the lighting is a little bit more full and more dynamic, and altogether it has changed a little bit with a slight facelift on the user interface, and the functionality has definitely increased, as has the features that make this game a little bit more iterative than the last one, but not quite as impressive as the one that follows it. So Pandora Tomorrow, what do you really need to know? If this is my first video that you're watching of mine, probably not the best place to start, although I do like to think all my videos stand alone. However, I do recommend watching the first Splinter Cell walkthrough, because you're going to have a much grander understanding of the systems and the things I'll be implementing in this walkthrough as almost a companion to it. But so that this can stand alone, we are going to go over certain things. For instance, dropping off here. If you press the drop button along with, I think it's triangle and circle at the same time, you will immediately crouch. You'll make no noise when you drop, and it is one of the more advanced techniques from the first game that makes it back into this one. However, in this game, you're not really going to need to use it in the same capacity, I don't believe. As a whole, I think Pandora Tomorrow is easier. I don't know if that's because I'm a more familiar player with the series by the point I was recording this, or if it actually is, in fact, easier, but please feel free to share thoughts of the contrary if you think the first one is tougher. Because the situations in this game, aside from the lighting, which I mentioned briefly in my other walkthrough, the one confusing aspect of Pandora Tomorrow is this. Watch my bottom right. On the bottom right there is a bar that shows 3 very distinct cubes of illumination. I say cubes, they're like, it's a horizontal bar. Whenever you're on the furthest of the left, it means you cannot be seen, within reason. This is on hard, and the enemy's awareness is increased for obvious reasons. The more it fluctuates to the middle, that means the more illuminated you are, and on the right, you are essentially asking to be spotted. It's pretty strict in this. However, because this game has even more dynamic lighting, and the lighting engine is a massive emphasis here, there are times when you feel like you are in shadow and you are not, and conversely there are times when you feel like you aren't in shadow but you cannot be seen. And there's a lot of this, especially in Pandora Tomorrow, where the lighting and the AI are at constant battles with each other for supremacy of vision. And it can make certain areas much easier than they look, and it can make an easy area much more difficult than it should be. However, if you're here, you've got a walkthrough for the rest of the game, and it's going to get you through it, hopefully in the least amount of woe. And if you do happen to stumble upon any ire from any of the situations, and if my strategies aren't working for you, hopefully you'll have one yourself already prepared. Because the one thing that I notice a lot, especially when I do any kind of stealth game, is that everybody seems to have different ways of doing things, and a lot of them are shared in the comment section. So if you are personally struggling on a certain section, please check the comments, because sometimes you can find some fantastic information in there from people who have played the game a ton, from people who just never forgot, all that kind of good stuff. And always remember that whatever you see in any walkthrough is not the only way to do it. There are always multiple ways, folks, and you know, believe in yourself. I know it sounds silly, and I know it can sound cheesy like the innards of a Hallmark card, but you are the best player in your own universe. And I know that sounds highly profound and quite silly, but it's true. If you put your mind to it, you will be able to do it. It won't be easy, it can take a long time, but if you're willing to do it, you can pull it off. And it's the same with most things. So if you're stuck on a sequence and walkthroughs aren't working for you, that doesn't mean you should give up. It means you should keep striving forward and forging a path so that you can find your own way through it. And even if watching a video is just there to give you the confidence to do it, it served its purpose. You know, not every single RNG pattern of gameplay is going to be the same on your screen as it is on my screen, and that is one of the difficulties of making any kind of project like this. Also, this game saves a lot. And in the previous title, it didn't save as much, so you could get into a habit of auto-saving and manually saving, and it's really effective. But on this game, it forces saves on you quite a lot, and for the most I've tried to trim them out, but I wanted to keep a few of them in, because I don't trim out getting checkpoints on other games, so it feels like it's a part of the title so that I can have a greater sense of continuity with it. But all this level is a tutorial. If you played the first game, the levels that start them are always reintroducing you to the concept of being Sam Fisher and getting through these missions as quiet as you can. The only reason I'm taking this slow here is because of sound. Whenever you move in any kind of surface on this game, it makes noise. Even when you're crouched, you have to lightly brush the analog. And on hard difficulty, the AI have got enhanced sensors, and sometimes the sensors can be really stupid and work in your favour. Other times they can be an absolute nightmare and just omniscient bullshit that you don't think should work but does, and you end up paying the price for it. However, most of the challenges you'll find here are pretty minimal, but it's getting you back into the controls, back into the changes, and that is one of those autosaves that I mentioned. It just takes over your screen, and boom, it's done. And what I recommend doing, folks, is quick save after every one of those autosaves. That way you've got 2 saves to rely on. You don't have to go through menus to reload. You can just quick load. However, I have to put a little footnote to that, as there's a lot of people who have had troubles with this game, with it crashing, with it deleting saves and damaging saves and not unlocking trophies. I can confirm that on Splinter Cell, the first part of this high definition collection, I had a lot of problems with crashes. In part 2, I didn't have one. I had no stability issues with this one at all. But that doesn't mean you won't, and unfortunately you can't control it. But this right here is an example of the interrogation system. It's pretty similar to the one on the past game, but it's embellished a little bit, and it also introduces us to one of the first and most important improvements of this title. When you knock people out from this grab hold, instead of them falling in any random direction depending on where you do it, they will always go in front of you, so you can articulate where you want them to fall, and that way you don't have bodies that you have to then pick up and move. You can put them first time where you want them to be, and with me it's always in whichever part of the world has the most shadow on the shadow bar. It can look super illuminated in the game. As long as that shadow bar is telling you you're on the far left, then you're perfectly fine. The more astute people paying attention to the last walkthrough, or just the people who've been with Splinter Cell quite a lot, will realise that the HUD has had quite a big overhaul. The images and the details for the pistols and things, they look a lot prettier this time around. I mean, sure, they're no Escher paintings, but they're a lot better than that word art, Microsoft Paint bullshit that was in the last game. That being said, there are features of the HUD that I prefer in the previous one, but it's one of those things that's not really important. So the first thing you want to always try and do when playing any of the Splinter Cell games is take into consideration where you are. And yes, as you just saw then from that piece of movement, the frame rate on this game is dog shit. It cannot be stated enough just how bad this port is, but I think that just is a testament to the quality of the game, that even in this kind of atrocious state, I still adored playing it. And if you've never experienced Splinter Cell, I recommend you start with the early ones, as tempting as it is to start with the most recent ones. I think Double Agent is a great game, but it's a much different game than this. I also think Conviction is a good game, but it's way different than this. And even Blacklist is a completely different caliber of stealth game. So if you truly want to get an appreciation for the series, you've got to start at the beginning. I'm a bit of a stickler when it comes to that. This particular sequence here, you have to be rather tentative, and there's a mechanic on this game, I believe it's entitled the cover-to-cover movement. I call it the swap turn. It is a movement option that for some reason makes you completely invisible most of the time, even though you are very visible when you do it, and it's a really good option for moving between cover quickly and stealthily, even on the harder difficulties. But as I was saying before we got to this section with Sedano, who is the Kinkladze of this game, I think that was the name of the last guy, Nikolai Kinkladze, something like that. But with any Splinter Cell game, you want to look all the way around your environment. There's probably something to climb, there's probably a drain pipe, there's probably a really crazy freezing section. Do you see that? I've left that kind of stuff in just to see what happens, and in my first guide I chalked it up a little bit to my PS3 being one of the older ones, the ones that kind of look like a bread bin. But everybody was saying that it happens on all of them because it's just a very poorly optimised port, which is really frustrating, but we're not going to dwell on that because we already did last time, and I've said everything I need to say about it. But this game will always give you an option. You can create your own options, and that's the beauty of it, but for the most, there will be the obvious path, which is generally the toughest. It generally involves navigating enemies, knocking them out, or stealthing it past them if you want to get tricky, and it's generally the traditional way of approaching a level. Then there'll be the more unconventional and less obvious path through the level. Not all levels have this, but certain sections definitely will, where you can either go high or you can go low. Low will generally be some kind of subway system, or a tunnel, or an air vent, and high will generally be a ladder, a climbable surface, a sequence of climbable surfaces, or a pole to climb up, or a drain pipe. I guarantee you, every single time, if you come across a drain pipe or any of those surfaces I just mentioned, it will take you to a considerably easier path through the level. Because I've said that, you'll find one now which leads you into a shit show, which is worse than any path you could have chosen, but the rule of thumb is generally it will lead you to the path of least resistance, and that is literally what these titles are. You can play them however you choose to. You can kill people, you can take people out, you can completely ignore everybody and just do it like a ghost. It's entirely up to you. And in this walkthrough, there are other objectives that I tried to do. Some of them I wasn't successful on, which I need to explain. There's an achievement for beating this game without dying. I died twice, I believe. One of them was because I jumped in water and I didn't realise it was a fail state. Another one was something similar to that nature. I got set on fire, or a bomb went off, or something along those lines. I died in two incredibly stupid ways. And unfortunately, this game overwrites your previous save as you die, so you can't cheese it like you could the first game and get that death achievement. So if you want to get the game without dying, you either have to have a really, really, really good campaign where you know where everything's coming and you don't fall for any of the traps, or you need to back up your save. I have no idea how to back up my save on the XMB, because it's a little bit like advanced calculus. It's something you either know, or you get a video and somebody intelligent tells you where it is, because that thing is just confusing and convoluted, and for the most, for tech-savvy people, because it's not immediately obvious, it's not accessible at all, it's just pretty terrible. However, you can do it, like most things, and I'm sure there's people that know how, and I'm sure you can Google that shit. So if you want to do that, feel free to. However, it's probably going to be pretty laborious and annoying if that's the way you want to play. However, I can confirm I only died twice on the hardest difficulty, trying to do it without killing people, trying to do it without firing my F-2000's primary fire, trying to do a whole bunch of stipulations, never getting spotted, no alarms, all that kind of good stuff, and I only died twice, and the last time I played this game was on the GameCube when it came out. So that should give you faith that if you want to pop it onto easy, you should be able to get through the game at a decent pace without dying, as long as you know where all the instant death moments are. If you don't, then they're going to catch you, because that's exactly what they did to me. But other stipulations I just explained. I will be trying not to kill anybody. However, there might be exceptions, I can't really remember. I will be trying not to be spotted or have any alarms. That is one of those stipulations that the game enforces on you anyway, for the most, so that's not a problem. And then the last one will be not to fire my assault rifle unless I use its secondary fire, and even those I'm going to refrain from using them unless I have a really cool strategy, because I relied on them way too much back when I was a kid, and I want to try and do this, you know, like Sam Fisher. And speaking of Sam Fisher's technique, I don't think what I'm about to do is what Sam would do, but I think it's amazing, and I just kind of thought maybe it'd work, and it worked wonderfully. Watch this. Pull your gun out, shoot the wall directly behind that guard who's overlooking this, and then run to the drain pipe. If done correctly, he's going to turn around, and now all you have to do is run all the way through this courtyard. You can even stand up, the dude will probably not hear you. That being said, as cool as this strategy is, it kinda ruins one of the more interesting puzzles in the game, where the game flips the whole premise of stealth on its head, which I think is beautiful. because he has, I think, night vision goggles, so the way to stay out of them is to stay in the light, because the light blinds him. So instead of looking for shadow, you're looking for the enemy of shadow, and I think that's a really interesting mechanic. And it's something they only play with very rarely, but every so often when it does turn up, it's very welcome.
You must be my
Oh, and for every sequence from here on out, I'm going to be skipping the NPC dialogues, a little bit like I did just then. If you're playing the game, you know what she's saying. If you don't, you probably don't care. Unless you're one of those people who's watching this walkthrough in hopes of it being a playthrough so you can experience the story and the narrative. Which, to that person I say, please go elsewhere. This is a walkthrough for this, which means I'm guiding you through the gameplay. Everything else is insignificant to this project and to this piece of work. And I appreciate that some people have different distinctions on what walkthroughs and playthroughs are, and nobody can have any kind of consensus with it, but it just gets a little bit tedious for me when I have to have these, you know, pointless discussions over the difference, and why I have to explain to people why I don't have cutscenes in this, you know, why am I talking over this? It's kind of obvious to me because I've been in it for so long, but I appreciate that there are some people who have no idea about what this is, but this is me helping you beat the game, and it's really that simple. Hopefully it helps you, sometimes it entertains you, oftentimes it you know, it irks you, but it definitely is something. But before we get to the end of this video, I want to discuss why I said that I think this is easier than the first one. So, aside from the lighting stuff that I've mentioned, I think this game is easier because it's polished. And that's not to say the last one wasn't polished, but what I mean is it is more polished. It runs smoother, the situations work a little bit better, and for the whole, I don't think they're as tricky in the layout of things. Does that mean you're going to have an easy time playing this game? Hell no. What you have to bear in mind, folks, is I played this a shit ton when I was younger, and although I do forget a lot of the nuance, a lot of the grander schemes, I still remember certain things that I did a lot, which have helped me come back to this and record it. Like that just then, which is a good example. Whenever you're approaching somebody, the clop will only work from behind or if they're unaware of you. If you do it from in front, you're in trouble because they'll shoot you dead. If you don't want to mess with the clop, you can grab them, but just know that the grab is the most precise thing you can do, and it requires you to be the closest to them. It is definitely not something for somebody who's not very good at lightly sneaking up to enemies. However, this is, of course, the tutorial mission, so all of this is nominal compared to the challenge that's going to be happening later on. And of course, the final thing is, don't be afraid to get spotted and get alarms and get, you know, you finished your mission, Sam, you did shit, I hate you, now go home. You know, all that kind of stuff. See a couple of game overs. It's going to happen. That's what games are about, guys. Nobody knows it immediately. You have to learn. And, you know, learning isn't failing as long as you're getting something from it. If you're trying to do the same thing repeatedly and it's not working, and you think it should work and the game won't let it work and you're blaming the game, then you need to stop and you need to reevaluate, because that's not how it works. Sometimes it can be, and I bet there's a ton of strategies and like speedrun techniques that have been established by doing that, but as a rule, if something isn't working, mix it up. And it's the same with watching a walkthrough and doing it yourself. If the techniques that they're doing in the videos aren't working on your game, you've got to try something different. And I'm not saying this to undermine my work. I personally believe that if you follow every single part of these videos, you will get through the game with the same success I had, and it was a large amount of success. All I'm trying to say, and put forward with quite an emphasis here, is the progressive nature of being somebody who plays games. You are by nature a problem solver. That's what you're doing in these titles. Sure, it might not be saving world hunger or being Bob Geldof, only hopefully less douchey, but it's still solving problems, and as long as you can look at it like that, you can find a way to do it. But thank you very much for watching. This is the beginning of Pandora Tomorrow. Hopefully everybody that was excited for it is going to come and check it out. It's going to be a fun one. So, you take care now.